Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you gardening inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about all things vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you're just now catching us, because I know we're getting a lot of new listeners, you're definitely going to want to have a look at us on Apple Podcasts, and you can see all the different episodes and the topics that we've discussed every week. And so there's a lot that you can go back and kind of binge listen to if you are a podcast listener. And by the way, the show also airs on KKAT 860 AM on the radio on Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. here in Utah. So I hope you're enjoying the show. It's a fun, informative show that you can listen to while you're getting to work in the garden, something to just kind of inspire you to get out there and keep you in the know of what you should be doing in the yard. We bring in experts of all kinds of different topics. And speaking of experts, today's show is super exciting and very different from anything we've done so far. And I was inspired by it from a listener who had sent a message asking, she said, I'm terrified of snakes and I found one in my garden this weekend. I cannot sleep. What should I do? Is it going to destroy my garden, eat my vegetables? And it made me realize, okay, so to me, when I see a snake in the garden, I'm excited because, granted, I don't necessarily love snakes personally. Like, it's definitely something I would make a little shriek. Let's be honest. But I also understand that they eat a lot of rodents and they're really beneficial to the garden. And they most likely, it's very, very, very small chance that you're going to be hurt by a snake that is in your backyard. So that being said, I thought, well, why don't I reach out to a local expert to come on the show and talk to us about snakes, the type of snakes that we would see in our garden, what the benefits are, and if you are terrified of snakes and you don't want to have a snake in your yard, what can you do? Believe it or not, there is a removal service, which you will learn about in this episode, as well as if you want garden snakes and you're not sure if your yard has them and you want to be able to make sure you get some. I have Sarah Stiles from Scales and Tails, Utah, and she gets into that with us today. So I'm really excited to bring her onto the show. As well as this week, we're doing something completely new that we haven't done before. I am going to, through the harvest season, when I know a lot of us vegetable gardeners have a lot of excess, I'm going to be giving my favorite recipe from that week so that you can utilize fresh produce from your yard and try a brand new recipe that you may not have ever tried before. I'm kind of one of those where my favorite thing to do is to pick vegetables for my garden and make an amazing meal for my family and also preserve my harvest. So I'm really excited for the upcoming season, and I'm hoping to share a lot of recipes with you all on the things that I've been doing to preserve my harvest and to make amazing food for my family and share those with you, and I want you to share them with me. But for one, we all know, we all have a garden full of zucchini. Let's be honest. You've got it all over your kitchen table. And if you don't, it's because you just dropped it off at your neighbor's doors, rang the doorbell, and ran off. Just kidding. Okay, so anyway, that being said, I'm always looking for a new recipe to utilize summer squash and particularly zucchini. I feel like I've tried everything, and this year I found something new. It is a zucchini pasta that will knock you off of your feet. I have been loving it, and my kids have requested it 3 times this week. So I'm going to give that recipe at the end of today's show. So I hope you look forward to that and try the recipe. I'm also going to post it on our Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah. So definitely go give us a follow there. I will be not only leaving some episode notes from today's show, as well as I will be giving you the recipe to the zucchini pasta that I'm going to be talking about later in the show. So we'll get to all that in a minute, but first, the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
My tip of the week is do not, and I repeat, do not open that package of seeds from China. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there has been a mysterious seed issue going on where you'll go out to your front door or check your mailbox and you will find this package and you wonder to yourself, did I order something from China? And you open it up and it might say it's earrings or it may say it's something else, but you open up the package and it is seeds that you may recognize if you're an experienced gardener and you may not, but do not plant these seeds. Now, first of all, let me tell you that this is a scam and it is called a brushing scam. And essentially what it is people who are overseas that are trying to create a profile store on Amazon that has a lot of reviews and a lot of sales so that they can show up higher in search rankings for certain items. So instead of going about it like they should, what they will do is create a bunch of fake orders. They will mail a bunch of fake orders and it has to be shown as delivered at lots of different addresses, such as yours or your neighbors. And then they go in and create a fake account under your address and they go ahead and leave a review, 5-star of course, for their own product, which ended up being seeds, but no one ever really will know that on that side. And then their store gets higher credibility on Amazon, which also can happen on other stores on occasion like eBay. That being said, in general, you're probably going to be fine as far as your data and information. You probably just have ordered from the website in the past. But what you should do if you have received seeds is please do not plant them. Go to the Gardening Utah Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and type in Gardening Utah and you will find our Facebook page. And we have reposted the exact instructions on what to do from the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food, which basically says, please mail them to them. And if you're not able to mail them to them, then it's got the address and everything that you need to do, or you can also drop them off in downtown Salt Lake at about 350 North Redwood Road. They give you instructions on destroying the seeds. Now, they may look innocent to you if you're an experienced gardener. You may go, oh, these are just zinnia seeds or sunflower seeds. But you just never know if it ends up being, some type of invasive species. And if it's not native to this area and it was shipped from China, it's just not a good idea to enter it into our ecosystem. So, tip of the week, if you receive these seeds from China, do not open them. And you may still haven't received your shipment yet. You might still get them. I feel left out because I haven't. But then again, I don't order much from Amazon specifically. So go to the Gardening Utah Facebook page, look up what the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food says to do, and get those seeds mailed off to the proper place so that this situation can be handled properly.
And that was the tip of the week.
Never miss a tip for your garden. Never miss a tip for your garden. And never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Okay, when we come back right after this, we're going to be speaking with Sarah Stiles of Scales and Tails Utah. Sarah is a wildlife educator there. She has a bachelor's degree in wildlife and range resources, and she loves spending her free time finding and studying all types of animals. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and I'm so excited to have with me in our studio today, Sarah Stiles with Scales and Tails Utah. Thanks so much for joining us, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I was super excited because I've noticed over the last maybe month or so, or maybe a little longer, I've noticed so many listeners to Gardening Utah, as well as fans of the Utah Gardeners Facebook page and other gardening groups. I've noticed so many people mentioning that they're seeing garden snakes in their, well, many of them don't realize they're garden snakes, but they'll say, what do I do? There's a snake in my yard. And some people know that they're beneficial, some don't. And so I remember that you had commented and I thought, oh, this would be a great segment to really address these concerns. So I'm excited to have that.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to talk about my favorite subject in the whole world.
Oh my gosh. So tell us about Scales and Tails Utah.
So I work for a company called Scales and Tails Utah. We are a wildlife education company. We go around to schools, libraries, birthday parties, all kinds of events, and educate people about our animals. And we work primarily with reptiles, but also some with birds as well. So we have just a ton of fun with it.
Oh, that's so cool. You have birds too? That's my sweet spot. I have chickens, so I just love them.
We don't have any chickens. I kind of wish we did, especially those really fun silky chickens that are super cool looking.
Oh, so
but we did just get a baby hornbill, which is kind of cool.
My goodness, that's so cool. So I noticed that it seemed like there was a big pendulum swing on how much people knew about some people thought the garden snakes would be terrible for the garden, and some that thought that already knew that they're great. So talk us through some of the benefits of when you see a garden snake in your yard.
So when we're talking about garden snakes, there are a few different snakes that you might actually see in your garden. And we're talking about here in the Intermountain West, mostly along the Wasatch Front. So the ones that you are most likely to see would be a garter snake, or you might see a yellow-bellied racer, which is really cool. You might see a gopher snake, one of my favorites, or my all-time favorite, the Great Basin rattlesnake.
Oh, boy.
I know. People don't like to hear rattlesnake. They think, no, run away. But actually, rattlesnakes are super cool, and they're highly beneficial to your home, your property. In fact, all of these snakes are, even the venomous ones. So any of these snakes, what they're going to do is keep the pests out. So what do snakes eat? They eat your mice. They eat your voles. They eat your gophers. Hello, a gopher snake. And they eat rats. And all of those animals, they get in and they want to munch on your plants. Snakes are not vegetarians. They're not going to touch your plants. They're not going to swallow down your tomatoes or your cucumbers or your zucchini, although sometimes we wish they would eat the zucchini because we have too much zucchini. Can you have too much zucchini? I don't know if you can have too much zucchini.
Times.
Not in my garden. I don't know what happened to I think something's munching on my zucchini this year. And it's not mice. It's the grasshoppers. Darn things.
Oh, yes. Or in some cases, rabbits. I've heard that lately, too.
Oh, we don't have any rabbits here. We've had rats in the past, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Partly because of the snakes and partly because I have a really good dog who loves to chase after the rats too. But we're talking about snakes, not dogs. So even something like a garter snake, they're going to go after those pesky little rodents that just want to munch everything in your house. But also mice and rodents carry a lot of diseases, and diseases are gross. Nobody likes getting sick. That's why everybody's wearing masks everywhere right now, because getting sick is awful. So mice and rats and other rodents, they carry things like rabies. They carry hantavirus, the bubonic plague. That was just rediscovered in some squirrels and just over in Colorado. That's only one state over, you guys. We do not want the plague back.
No, please, no.
That would be awful. That was not on my 2020 bingo card.
Right?
So the snakes are the best at pest control. Now, there are a lot of other animals that eat rodents. So we're talking things like hawks, owls, eagles, foxes, skunks, badgers, if you're in an area with badgers. All of these animals will catch and eat rodents. However, none of those animals can actually go down the mouse hole to get the mouse. But a snake can. Oh. Snakes are perfectly designed to go right down those mouse holes and eat all the mice right out of house and home. So
that's quite a thought. I've never thought of it that way.
They are long and skinny for a reason, and if they had legs, they would just get in the way. So that is what snakes are designed for. They're designed to go down holes and catch rodents. Awesome.
Okay.
So snakes keep us disease free because snakes, they're not bothered at all by rodent diseases. They can't get hantavirus, they cannot get rabies, they cannot get the plague. So if a rodent comes in with those types of diseases and a snake eats it, disease goes away, snakes get a meal. Woohoo!
Yeah.
But also, they're keeping our gardens safe from munchies.
Absolutely.
I like to have the tomatoes in my belly.
Yes. Well, and also a huge complaint that you always hear with gardeners is the bumps in their lawn. And that's typically from voles or moles.
Right. Snakes do not dig. They don't have any hands. They can't actually dig. So all of those holes in the ground are created by rodents. So let's say you have a rodent problem. What do? You could set out traps, but unfortunately traps can trap things that you don't want to have trapped, like your toe.
Yes.
Or you could be trapping things like birds and other critters that we don't want to have trapped. You could set out poisons, but poisons are actually super bad for the environment because let's say a mouse eats poison and then runs around. They don't die right away. They might run around, and let's say a hawk catches it. Guess what happens to the hawk? Then they get the poison in their system, and that kills the hawk. Or it does something, it creates a sort of effect wherein the poison kind of goes up the food chain, and then it weakens the eggshells of the birds of prey. And this has been an ongoing issue, and this is why we almost lost all of our bald eagles. So we don't want to put poisons into the ecosystem if we can help it. And especially here, like a lot of people live near a watershed area. This means you have water flowing in your neighborhood, or it might be close to the surface. Those poisons can leach down into that water, and it poisons the water system. So in a lot of places, it's actually illegal to use poisons for that reason. So don't use poison. Poison is bad. It's very effective at killing the rodents, but it's also very effective at killing everybody else too.
Yes, I completely agree. We had a recent, really sad situation in the general area where I live recently where somebody had put out rat poison to trap some rats in their yard and kill them. But in turn, what they found was a family of dead owls. And according to one of my neighbors, the owls that were on the ground were very, I don't know if it was how endangered, but she mentioned that they were quite rare. And how devastating is that? And I hate hearing that. It sparks a fire in me, and I just wonder, there's got to be something I can do about this. Beyond, education, like what we're doing makes me super happy that hopefully we're encouraging people out there as they're listening to second guess that when you're needing to solve a rodent problem. Okay, please don't go to Lowe's or Home Depot. I'm sorry, Lowe's and Home Depot, but don't buy that poison. Let's come up with plan B. There's so many other plan Bs,
Yeah, poison is icky. Plus, people who have pets, cats, dogs, a lot of times they will actually ingest that poison themselves. It smells good. It's really interesting. That's why it attracts the rodents in the first place. Guess what? It attracts your own pets. Having your own pet die from poison is the worst possible scenario. Kids can get a hold of it. You guys, please, please, please do not use poisons. It's just bad all the way around. Instead, you can get a snake.
There you go.
Utah has lots of native snakes. We've got gopher snakes, garter snakes, yellow belly racer snakes, all of those completely harmless. And if they're in your yard, hooray! Now you don't have a rodent problem. And personally, I would rather have snakes in my yard than rodents in my house. Because if the rodents are inside your garden, guess what? They're probably in your house.
Oh,
gross.
That's a really interesting analogy. I'm going to write that down and make sure I mention that in future episodes. I would rather have a snake in my yard than rodents in my house. Yeah. I like that. So
rodents
is it
are gross.
possible, we have a minute and a half here before we hit the break. Is it possible to buy snakes if you don't? So if you're the opposite than some of the listeners and you're like, I don't know how to get rid of these snakes, not realizing that you shouldn't get rid of the snakes. But if you actually don't have any, or at least don't see any, but you want to get them, where do you go?
So if you want, you can always talk to a breeder. There are lots of breeders right here along the Wasatch Front that breed gopher snakes, garter snakes, and things like that. However, it's really important that you get the type that actually is from here. You don't want to just go buy a snake from any old pet store and release it into your yard. That can create something called an invasive species. Yeah. That's when an animal gets in that is not supposed to be there, and then that creates its own issues. So stick with Utah natives, in particular in your area. So wandering garter snakes, yellow-bellied racers, gopher snakes are the three that you definitely want to have around.
Okay, and listeners, I'm going to add that to the episode notes so that if you're just driving around or you're in your garden, you can't write that down, but you want to take the notes, I'll make sure to add that to the episode notes in Apple Podcasts so that you have that there. And probably I'll put it out on Instagram as well at the Gardening Utah page, and we'll post those there. So we're going to come back after this break. We're going to have more with Sarah Stiles from Scales and Tails Utah. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about if you don't want a snake in your yard or if you can't identify it, what to do next. Stay with us.
860 KKAT with Jana Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. She really does have the nicest yard on the block. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and I have Sarah Stiles with Scales and Tails Utah with me, and we're talking about snakes in the garden, and she has more tips about where to buy snakes if you want to add them to your yard.
So this isn't actually where to buy the snakes, it's where to find them already. Ooh. So let's say you don't want to go out and spend a bunch of money on buying a snake that you're just going to release back out into the wild, and maybe you want to make sure that it's already native. The best way
They
to do
are
that
the
is
experts
to go out
that the
and find
professionals
them
go to
yourself.
for all things
Let's
plants.
say
Progressive
you
Plants
want
has
some
over a
garter
million
snakes. The best place
plants
to
at their
find garter
100-acre
snakes is
nursery up in
anywhere
Copperton.
Utah where
And you
there's
can
water.
shop those plants from
So
right at home at
all the local
progressiveplants.com.
ponds,
Visit
garter snakes
progressiveplants.com today.
Garter snakes for days, and it's a lot of fun to go out and find them. Yellow-bellied racers are a little bit harder to find, and they can be really feisty. Gopher snakes just go out in the desert or up in the mountains. They are literally everywhere. Like, they're just all over the place. So you can find plenty of those, and it's perfectly legal to take them and put them in your own yard. If you have a rodent problem. Now, if you don't have a rodent problem and you put the snake in your yard, they're just going to wander off in search of other food. But I guarantee if you have rodents around your property, these snakes are just going to make themselves right at home and rid you of your rodent problem.
Interesting. And is there anything else, if you do bring a snake into your yard, is there anything else you need to provide for them beyond just perhaps putting them where you think they're going to find the rodent?
Nope. Catch and release.
Interesting.
It's very, very simple. Now, I will warn that when you take an animal out of the wild, they can be feisty. They're not tame animals. So use a pair of strong leather gloves to prevent yourself from getting bit by them, and put them in a large bucket, such as you might get at like Lowe's or Home Depot, those big 5-gallon buckets, with a lid on it. Just make sure you drill holes in the side. Otherwise, you'll suffocate your snake.
Oh, yeah. That would be terrible. Okay, so they sounds like they can bite you, even a garter snake?
Sure, any animal can bite. That's how they eat. So, and that's how they defend themselves. So they can bite, but if you're careful, you'll be just fine. None of those snakes are venomous. Most likely with a garter snake, you're going to get musked on, which is like a really gross smelling substance that they secrete out of their cloaca. It smells truly, truly awful. So
Oh, I've
They're
never
not likely to bite. Yeah, a lot of snakes will musk on you. It really is the grossest smelling thing you'll ever experience, but that is their defense. So watch out for that.
I didn't realize they had like a kind of like skunks, right?
Yeah, I think it smells worse than skunks.
Kidding me.
Yeah, it's really gross. It
So
gets on your hands and you can't wash it off. You have to, you kind of have to work at it to get it off your skin. It kind of gets in there.
Oh my word. Okay, this is new information to me. Well, so I live right on the Jordan River. I mean, my property borders the Jordan River. And I do have a tremendous amount of garter snakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my husband calls them. I'm assuming that's what they are. But he really likes to pick them up and kind of move them around. And you know, that it terrifies me just because I don't, you know, I also, he keeps saying, well, they don't bite. But it sounds like they can.
They can bite. And what most people don't realize is that garter snakes are actually mildly venomous. They're rear-fang venomous, which means their fangs are way in the back of their jaw. They rarely bite. For a garter snake to bite you, you'd have to be really doing something bad to it. They're way more likely to just musk on you. I have heard of people getting bit. It causes some minor irritation on the skin, but not bad. Their venom is mostly to subdue their prey, which is usually fish, frogs, those sorts of things. You're neither a fish nor a frog, so you're probably fine.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like just like a sting from a bee or a wasp.
Yeah, it's not even that bad.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
It's really not bad at all.
Okay, so in the event, so in this original post that kind of inspired this episode for me and the question that we were getting, one of them was, you know, I have a tremendous fear, because some people do have a tremendous fear of snakes.
Sure.
Obviously. What do? I can't even sleep at night knowing that one of them is out there, even though most likely many people have them. Even just because they don't see them doesn't mean they're not there. So what is the process that they can go about? Because I think you mentioned something that blew my mind that I didn't realize.
So the first thing that you need to realize is that the state of Utah has a very specific law that states that you cannot harm or kill any snakes in the state of Utah unless your life is clearly in danger. Having a snake simply on your property does not mean that you're going to die. It just means there's a snake there, right? So if you don't want a snake, why would you not want a snake? But if you don't want a snake on your property, you can remove it and release it back somewhere else in the wild. Okay. Now, most snakes, for example, like the ones that we've already been talking about, gopher snakes, garter snakes, yellow-bellied racers, and a bunch of other snakes that you might find that are rare, but you might see them, totally harmless. You can just pick it up, put it in a bucket or a pillowcase, and just take it off into the wild, put it out in the desert or in the forest that is someplace near you, but where it can be safe, not on your property. However, if you have a rattlesnake, for heaven's sakes, don't mess with it.
Yeah.
They are venomous animals, so we don't want to go around messing with them, especially if you're not experienced. Don't poke it with a stick. Don't hit it with a shovel, please. The rattlesnakes are just doing their thing. They're looking for the rodents. If you find one on your property, it's likely that there are rodents around your property that they're looking for. Or maybe you have a nice hidey hole that they want to hide in. If that should happen, you need to call somebody who is trained to come and remove the snake for you. The best company that I have found for that is a company called Wasatch. I think it's called Wasatch Snake Removal.
Okay.
And they will come in and safely remove the snake and relocate it to a different location. Okay. These people have been around for a long time. It's free, so it doesn't cost you anything to call them. So go ahead and give them a call. If you have a snake, any kind of snake on your property, you don't want it, you don't want to mess with it, just call them. They'll take it for you.
Okay, so Wasatch Snake removal, add that to the episode notes and put it on social media when this episode airs. That's a great tip. So when we come back right after this, we're going to talk with Sarah a little bit about your garden harvest and how it can benefit Scales and Tails Utah. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. 860 KKAT with more of the fastest growing show on radio. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and I've got Sarah Stiles with me today from Scales and Tails Utah. Thank you so much for being here. This has been a really interesting conversation.
You're welcome. I am really enjoying this conversation myself. I love talking about this sort of thing.
So I haven't sprung this question on you yet, but it just occurred to me as we're talking. If there's one thing that you wish the state of Utah knew about either, garden snakes or even Scales and Tails Utah, what would you want them to know?
I really just wish more people did know that harming snakes is illegal in the state of Utah.
Okay.
Don't do it. Snakes are super beneficial. That's why it's illegal to kill them here.
Yeah. So another thing that stood out to me a while back was that there is a need at Scales and Tails Utah that quite often matches up with an excess on the gardener's side. So tell us more about that.
So our facility isn't just snakes. We have so many animals. We have over 100 animals that we care for, and many of them are herbivorous, like our tortoises. We have some lizards and a few other animals that are strictly herbivorous. That means they eat a lot of plants, and some of our tortoises are huge, and they eat more than you can possibly imagine in produce. Every Sunday we go in and we just do a massive amount of food preparation for the week. Tons and tons and tons of food. We pre-measure everything, so we go through and we're chopping lettuce. We're grating squash. They love squash and carrots and pumpkin. Pumpkin is like one of their favorite things in the whole wide world. So anything in the gourd family, any kind of carrots, lettuces, we put it all together and pre-measure it. And during the week, we feed it to them throughout the week. So it's a big amount of preparation.
So you were mentioning a need. Where do you typically get this produce, and how can people help if they have excess produce?
Well, a lot of times we have to just buy the food, but as you can imagine, when you have this many animals, it can be expensive. And the biggest problem that we have personally faced this year is because of COVID, we haven't been able to do as many of our programs. So normally all summer long, we're doing fairs and things. Well, a lot of the fairs have been canceled. That means we don't have as much income. That means we don't have as much money to spend on all of this food that the animals must eat in order to survive. So if your listeners have an excess amount of produce, if they are getting too much zucchini and they don't know what to do with it, we will gladly take it off your hands. And for anybody that wants to donate food, they can give us a call and set up a time to come down and donate the food. Our phone number is 801-577-7182. And they can talk to Shane or Rindy about coming down and donating food for us. And we'll even let you walk around and see all of the cool animals when you come and do it, because it is a really cool facility. We might be one of the only facilities where you can get up close and personal with an alligator.
Oh, you're kidding.
No. It's a real big alligator. He's over 7 feet long now.
Whoa. And now where are you guys located?
We are located in West Valley. Our address is, right now we are at 3584 South, 1950 West in West Valley, suite number 13. It's right around the corner from the Maverick Center. However, normally we have the public can come in and just do fun little things. Because of COVID, things have kind of shifted. People can call for a private tour, which is about an hour long, and it's very hands-on. So we actually let people hold and touch our animals, and they can feed one of the animals. It's really, really cool. A lot of fun for kids to be able to do that. But another thing we have going on is that we're actually moving into a new facility, a bigger facility, and that's going to be kind of just north of downtown, right on Beck Street. So kind of a more central location.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. When are you moving there?
That's a good question. We've actually been trying to move into the facility for a whole year, but COVID has really set us back big time. But we are super, super close. I think we're probably within a month of being able to start moving in. So in about a couple of months, we'll be into our new facility, hopefully. Cross your fingers.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. Okay. Very cool. And so there's other things that you can do with Scales and Tails. Talk to us about birthday parties.
Oh, yes. So we do a lot of birthday parties. It's one of our most fun things to do. So say you have a kid who loves animals and especially reptiles, and you want to have an extra fun birthday party for them, we can actually come and do a private reptile show in your own backyard. It is super fun. Or if you're not comfortable with us being in your yard, we can go to a park. We go to all sorts of places. We've done library events. We have done, today I was just at a summer camp. So that's a lot of fun. We do scouting programs all the time. In fact, we have a specific merit badge that they can do with our program. So if you are in a scouting program, if you have a scouting troop, for heaven's sakes, give us a call. We'd love to come down and help you. And of course, school is starting up again. And guess what that means?
Yeah.
School programs.
Right.
Yes. That's right. So that is our bread and butter. We go to do school programs all the time. We come right into the classrooms. We can do an entire school at once. We have so much fun with it. And again, this is bringing the animals right to the kids so they can see them. A lot of times they'll get to pet at least one of the animals. COVID is making things a little bit weird with getting too close, but we try to make it as safe as possible. Lots of hand sanitizer, wearing masks, and everything like that. So we make it super duper safe.
Yeah. Well, and I, when I first found out about you guys, was actually at a birthday party of
fun.
One of my husband's friends. And it was his yearly tradition is having you guys out at his party. And my daughter for years would be like, now, Mom, when is Greg's birthday? Because I really want to hold the boa constrictor. I forget if it was the boa constrictor. Maybe it was a python.
Probably a python.
Yeah, and she looked so forward to holding all the different kinds of snakes. So, and Annie, all the way down to like the itty bitty lizards. So tell us like what types of animals you bring out to the events.
Oh my gosh, we have so many different types. We don't have anything specific that goes out to any show except for like basic sizes. So we have small, medium, large shows. A small show is like 6 smaller animals. So you might see something like some bearded dragons or maybe a smaller Burmese python less than 10 feet long. You might see some little turtles and tortoises and fun things like that. As you get into the bigger shows, like our biggest show, we do actually bring out our biggest animals. So we're bringing a huge python. We've got at least one big turtle or tortoise that we're bringing, a huge lizard, and a live crocodilian. So,
right.
Plus all the smaller ones.
Yes, of course. Okay, I'm remembering that. It's so fun. I'm blown away right now thinking, gosh, that really would be such a process to feed all these animals.
It gets to be kind of pricey.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Well, gosh, so let's remind our listeners again how they can find you guys. Let's remind them the phone number and the website. So in the event that they want to contact you guys into the future.
Sure. Our phone number again is 801-577-7182. And the address currently is 3584 South 1950 West, Suite number 13 in West Valley City.
Fantastic. Well, Sarah, this has been so much fun having you. Is there anything else you want to tell Utah listeners while you're at it?
Reptiles are awesome, and snakes are the best of all.
I love it. Thanks so much for joining us here on Gardening Utah.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that was really fun speaking with Sarah. And after we recorded that portion, we talked about a few things that I should clarify just to make sure everybody is clear. So when you do remove animals from the wild, if you do decide to go sort of hunt for some garden snakes to add to your yard, you should probably have a permit. And now it is legal to collect the common species that she named, but it would be better with a permit. And also, it is important to clarify that you should do a little research on the types of snakes that would already be found in your area before you go out to catch them. And then most of all, check with your neighbors. As we talked about earlier in the show, some people are not okay with snakes, just in that either there's a misconception that they're bad or that they're terrified of them. And, mostly just because they don't realize that they're not harmful to you in most cases. So the reality is snakes have no regard for fences or boundaries, kind of like cats. So while snakes are amazing, not everybody's okay with them. So it wouldn't be fair to just release them in your yard unless your neighbor is okay with it. So those are just a couple good points that we should think about in association with the amazing tips from Sarah. Okay, so down to the recipe that I've been bragging about at the beginning of the show, guys. So this definitely is a great way to use up that zucchini harvest. Okay, so it is so easy, like I mentioned. Get your pot of pasta going. I like to use penne, but you could use whatever kind of pasta you want. Get that to a rolling boil and add some salt to the water. And then dice up a zucchini, a medium-sized zucchini, and add your olive oil to the pan. Put the zucchini in the pan and give it quite a bit of salt. I mean, not over salting, but a lot of salt to just get that water leaching out of the zucchini. And you want to save that water, but you really want the zucchini to just sort of cook down. And as the zucchini is cooking, kind of on medium heat, you're going to want to add some of the pasta water to get it, the zucchini kind of soggy. And then once your zucchini has a little bit of golden, tinge from the olive oil or butter that you used to get it cooked, as well as it's completely soft, you're going to want to take about 3/4 of the chopped zucchini and put it in a blender. Now, when you blend it, you can slowly add the pasta water. And what you're going for is kind of the thickness of a spaghetti sauce, okay? So you're not adding too much cooking or pasta water, but you're just going to want to get it in there so it's the same consistency. And give it a complete blend so that it kind of looks like pesto in a way, but it's like zucchini pesto. And from there, once it's completely blended and it's a good consistency that's just like pasta sauce, you're going to drain your pasta when it's al dente, and you're going to pour this on top of your pasta with the cubed zucchini that you left in the pan. There's not a lot of those, but just enough. And then you're going to add your favorite grated Italian cheese like Parmigiano Reggiano, or you can use Pecorino, whatever kind of Italian cheese you have, but make sure to grate it fresh because it makes it incredible. And then you're just going to want to stir. And this is where your eyeball comes in. You're going to want to be looking at it to make sure it's the right consistency that you like. Use a lot of pasta water if you need to. And it doesn't make it runny. Think about it like this. It makes it creamy. And then add the kind of, seasonings you like as far as salt, pepper. Add a little more Parmesan cheese on top. And I am telling you what, the family, at least my kids came back for more and more and more. And I've made it 3 nights in the last 7 by request. So great way to use up zucchini. Great way to pick something fresh from the garden and feed it to your family. It's always such a rush when you can do that. So I hope that you guys enjoy this recipe. And thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Gardening Utah. We'll see you next week on Gardening Utah. And remember, grow big or go home.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast, Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.